This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I would like to remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Very appreciated. Very helpful. Allows us to do as like, dislike, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And unfortunately, we only have one more week to discuss the Last Chance documentary. Obviously, you guys are hearing this Monday, but as you know, the episodes 7 and 8 came out Sunday night. If you haven't seen them already, skip ahead 2 segments because I'm going to be discussing them. So if you don't want things spoiled for you, I will put that little disclaimer out there for you. But for those of us that have been keeping up, we only have one more week left, which is very disappointing because the documentary is very good, and also there's not really a whole lot of new sports happening. Obviously, like I said, we got the KBO. I think UFC is going to be doing some stuff. Obviously, they have some stuff this weekend, which we would touch on in a little bit. But yeah, but just after this, we just got to kind of hope that this MLB proposal kind of gets off the ground, the NBA can come back, or like I said, who knows when we're going to have live sports again, like more regularly. Like I said, in KBO, they tell us, I think, was like 6 games a total of a week, so not that much, and obviously the games are kind of not built for an American time slot because they obviously happen in a different time over there, so or like they're way ahead of us, so obviously the time is going to be a little off. But yeah, so like I said, after that, not really a whole lot to discuss. But this episode tonight gave us a lot to discuss. So episode 7. It opened on... What did it open on again? Oh yeah, it opened on... Well, so start talking about the 98 playoffs. Because I know that's kind of where we left off. In episode 6, we just said, they're getting ready to start the playoffs. Then we... So we kind of started talking about that. Started talking about the Nets series a little bit, about how they were supposed to wash them. And, I mean, technically they did, but there was more hard fought, and maybe it should have been, or they thought it would have been. But regardless, so then, like I said, as you know, with this documentary doing the time jump things, try to kind of piece everything together until you give a better understanding of why the 98 season happened or was as important as it was. Because obviously, if you just look at it in one season and say, oh, okay, a team's trying to compete a three-peat, which obviously, you know, since then has happened. But it's very difficult. So you're like, oh, why is this season so significant? But like I said, if they went you out everything together to get to how you got to there, then it makes more sense. That's kind of what they're trying to do. So, in the little flashback kind of catch-up, if you would, kind of, like I said, they're trying to catch you up to the present day. This was mainly focused on the retirement. And, obviously for the first time, because this was post... 92-93 season, the third championship, so they just beaten the Suns. Yeah, it was the Suns series. We did talk about in the last episode too. So they first off the Suns, and you could just tell from the lead up in that playoffs and the way people were talking about them, during with all the gambling stuff and kind of the way media criticized them and everything. You could tell he was kind of done. It was funny to hear. I forget, it was one of the reporters or something. I was talking. It must have been had been with the team, the Dream Team in '92, and Jordan said that if the only reason that he stuck around past the season was partly because he had to do like the dream team stuff. So it was like he was going to be in basketball playing shape anyway. So like it would have been weird to retire at post dream team because he had just played, but also because Magic and Bird had never completed a three-peat. So just like again, and that was kind of another theme throughout that episode, just like his competitive drive. So it's funny. The only thing that really fueled him to come back, because he said he would have retired that season to go play baseball if he could have. But then, like I said, the whole three-peat thing and his drive to be better than people and to one-up people and to achieve what people hadn't achieved yet, that was really the main reason why he came back, was so that he could get the three-peat. And then he did. So then he retired. And then obviously, the unfortunate part of that is that the retirement ended up coming after the death of his father, which, from all stories out there, was a unrelated, just like a complete random act of violence. But then again, of course, with the whole gambling thing, people were kind of wondering, like, oh, was this the gambling catching up with him? Was there somebody trying to do that to him so he would pay off some debts? Which, I mean, is an interesting conspiracy to think about, but just like in practicality, it's like, last episode we talked about him. Obviously, he had a lot of debts, but like he was paying them. It's like why would you need to do that to send a message to him if he was, like I said, if he was already paying and stuff? It's not like he wasn't paying his debts. He was paying for them. It just, like, maybe were they coming as quickly as maybe people would like? Maybe not. But again, they were always getting paid, it seemed like, eventually. So I don't know why that message would need to be sent. It sounds like it was like two random teenagers, which, I mean, hey, if you're trying to rob somebody and then like it goes wrong, then unfortunately that kind of thing can happen. So it was just like rough for him to have to deal with that. And I think that was another reason, only added to the fire for him to want to retire, was the fact that obviously people were trying to tie it to him and talk about how he was connected. And I'm just like, if you're just any normal, sane person and your parent dies and you're immediately blamed, whether warranted or not, it's going to affect you. And obviously, like I said, that clearly had an effect on Jordan, because he was like, that's not... It's like the way the media, I guess, had been portraying the last few years had gotten to him, and obviously that was the tip of the iceberg. If he hadn't already hit it, was that like, all right, you're going to blame this guy for the death, and I mean that's why I can understand. Even back then, I can understand why people don't really like the media, because they just like you do things to get people interested in order to read, and it's unfortunate that's and it's only kind of grown since then with all this whole social media thing and just like the whole sensationalized nature of it, where you have to kind of be outlandish or brazen, or just like say crazy things, or come up with crazy conspiracies or crazy theories for things to get people to want to. Well, that's what people think, to get people to want to, like all the whole like the clickbait thing, where you have an outlandish headline and then like maybe the rest of the article is as that outlandish, or maybe it isn't. It's more reasonable, but you need to have the outlandish headline in order to get people to click on the page in order to read it. But then obviously that can backfire, because then you get a lot of bad publicity, or just like sometimes this stuff. I know there was. I forget what the article I saw today was. Something about, like, I think it was an article about, like, how the pandemic has shown us that we don't need sport, like, we need less sports as opposed to more. And just, like, if you have that opinion, again, it's your opinion, you're allowed to have opinions. But it's like, I'm not even going to read it if that's what, like, it's like, why would I even waste time reading that? So then it could potentially backfire. But, like I said, the way the media was portraying him, and obviously portrayed the death of his father, was enough of a reason for him to just be like, yeah, no, I'm good. Which, again, was very fair. For that aspect of it. So then, he retires, goes to play baseball, which was funny because it happened like I think it was at a White Sox playoff game that he was going to, like, it came out that he was going to announce the next day, and obviously it was just funny to see, like, people that were there to cover a playoff game, like, legitimate, important game for the White Sox, were just like, scratch that, I'm going to go find MJ and report on this story, as opposed to, like, there wasn't the whole game happening. So that was kind of funny. And then just like also just like seeing and watching clips of people like watching it, like the only thing that I can really think of, having seen, obviously not having lived through it, but having seen that got this much like publicity or hype or just like eyes on it, was like when the OJ verdict came down. Because if you've seen the documentary, you've seen anything about it, you saw how like everybody everywhere was watching to see what happened, and that's kind of how it felt with the Jordan thing. People were like legitimately like standing outside of like standing on streets. And it's like in auditoriums, wherever, just like any, like you saw the massive amount of media that were there, Like, I think they said, 100 camera, like, 300 plus reporters, wherever, just, like, everybody had to be there. They said it looked like the table looked like the Last Supper. Like, that's how crazy it was. And understandably, it's arguably the biggest athlete in the world retiring at the age of, I think, 30? After just winning 3 straight championships, reaching the pinnacle of the sport, that was a very rare thing. Now, we may see it. I mean, I don't know how many times we're ever going to see a person of that magnitude, of that caliber, retire like that. I guess the closest thing would have been if, like, Kobe retired after they lost to the... No, not even just if they retired after he won... Or maybe, like, Shaq retiring after he won the 3rd championship with the Lakers. Obviously, Kobe wasn't that old yet. Like, maybe, but even then, like, what Shaq had accomplished and what Jordan had accomplished at the time were a little bit different. Obviously, Jordan's accomplishments were a little bit higher. Though Shaq, again, they both retired at the same time, like 3 championships. But it's just like that doesn't happen. Or, like, say Tom Brady retires after... no, like I said, there's no really good comparison for it. So even Tom Brady, when he won his first 3 championships, he was young. I'd have to think of a really good comparison for it, and I don't know if I have one right now. You guys are willing to reach, you're more than welcome to reach out to me about that, but like I said, there's no real, that kind of thing just doesn't happen in sports. Guys retire at their peak, arguably. And then retire to go play another sport. So that's why, and I think that's probably the reason why the whole, like, gambling, suspension conspiracy comes about, is because it's not like he just retired and did nothing. He retired to go play a different sport. Like, if he was like that, people are arguing to it, like, if he's that tired and that worn down, whatever, why just, like, not relax and just go play baseball? But again, if this is what relaxation was like for him, and obviously, as we've seen, he's a competitive guy. By any means, I don't think he could have just ever sat down at that time. Like, even now, like, he still has to own a basketball team. Like, he needs to be involved somehow in competitive, in something competitive. So that's why I think the baseball made sense. It was like something he wanted to do, something his dad had always hoped that he could be able to do, and it's like it seemed like a perfect time for it to happen. And then even with that, I know a lot of people kind of harp on that. That was another big thing in the doc, was that, like, obviously he wasn't that good, but at the same time, coming, I guess, when he last played in high school, so like 17 years old, and not playing for 14 years and coming back into AA and hitting over 200 is not that bad, realistic. Like, based on everything around. Obviously, for a baseball player, hitting 200 is not good. But when you haven't done it in 14 years, it's not that easy. And obviously, I'm a guy that hasn't played baseball past the high school level, and I understand how hard it is to even be good at that level, let alone be good enough to hit 200 in the minors. Like, people that hit 200 in the minors were very good on their high school teams. Like, you don't get to the minors without being very good on your high school team. So I'm saying it's just not as simple as people make it out to be. And even with that was still crazy. People just seem like watch him train and practice. People are, like, laying down on fences, just laying down on the ground to try to watch underneath the fence and stuff. Even that was kind of nutty. Well, I guess the funny thing, like, I knew what had happened, but just the fact that he was managed by Terry Francona, who obviously happened to be another great baseball manager. So it's just funny that he always happened to be around greatness when it comes to coaches. So that was interesting. That was an interesting aspect of it. Then obviously they flash back to, not flashback, but they talk about a little bit more of the 98 and talk about it's like the way he interacted with his teammates, because obviously that's a big talking point, is that did he really elevate his teammates? Did he really get the best out of them? And obviously that was kind of the big closing on episode 7, was the fact that, like, all right, his coach, his motivation style, or his teammate style, or leadership style, I guess that's a better word, wasn't for everyone. Like, not everyone could do it the way he did it. But for him, and what he needed his teammates to do, and the way he needed his team run, it worked. And obviously you can cast judgments on it. You can debate whether it was the right way or the wrong way, but it worked for him. Kobe had a similar style, worked for him. They won a combined 11 championships, the two of them. Were they the greatest people to be around on the basketball court? Maybe, maybe not. But like I said, everyone's leadership styles is different. Everyone's coaching styles are different. Not everybody can coach the same way. Not everybody can be like the Zen master kind of guy like Phil was. Not everybody can be the dismissive in press conference nature that Bill Belichick has. Like, everybody's a little bit different in their own right. So, like I said, it was just crazy to see him just like talk about it's like the way he was perceived as like a leader and as a teammate, and just because like obviously like you said, winning, like you mentioned, winning comes with a price, leadership comes with a price. Obviously, if you want to be great, that's something you have to drive the people around you to be great. Because obviously he was great, so all he was trying to do was just to get the best out of everyone. Now, could he have gone about it a better way? Maybe. Did he need to insult Scott Burrell the way he did? Maybe not. But then, as I showed in the 98 playoffs, he had 23 in the closeout game against the Nets. Like that kind of thing allowed those players to be ready for those big moments. Because I guess that was his whole point. Is like if you can't handle what I'm going to do to you in practice, how are you going to be able to handle an NBA final stage or NBA playoff stage? That's why guys like Paxton or Steve Kerr could hit those big shots in those moments. Because they were ready for it. And how they got there is maybe not the best way or method or path or whatever. But like I said, it worked for Jordan, it worked for the Bulls. So if they weren't that mad about it, and if they were, obviously, then you react like Steve Kerr did and punch him in the chest, which I think they talked about in the next episode. It was the next episode they talked about that. But yeah, so I'm saying like that kind of stuff happens. If you feel that way, then react that way. And then obviously, like I said, they were able to grow from that. But just interesting to see him talk about that and just him get emotional about like his competitiveness and his drive to win and whatever he would do to win. It was wild to see, but again, knowing the way he reacts, it makes a lot of sense. So the only other thing I will touch on this episode before I move on was just that obviously the 93-94 season, I forget who was the specific guy that mentioned this, but he was talking about how this was like Phil Jackson's best coaching. This was like everyone wondered like, oh, the triangle works because you have. I think they said that Chuck Daly said that the triangle works. So you have MJ. Let's see how it works without him, and it worked darn close to well. Obviously, they didn't win the finals, but they got very close. Had a great season. Scotty was MVP type player. The ball movement around was great. Everyone was doing their part. Everyone was getting their shots and everything. So, like I said, it worked out fine. But then obviously the big story that they had for that season was the whole Tony Kukoc thing where Scotty kind of quit on the team where they drew up to play for Tony. And again, in fairness, knowing a little bit about Scotty's offensive game, 1.8 seconds turnaround jumper, that doesn't seem like his kind of play. Like if you had like 5-10 seconds and you could allow him to drive and facilitate and stuff, because that's obviously what they showed a lot of that season was him being a facilitator, not necessarily being the dominant scorer that MJ was. That's why in that moment MJ could catch that ball, turn around, hit that shot. Like that's something that would be a part of his game. It's not really something, from what I know, that's necessarily part of his game. But obviously we saw throughout the season when they showed the highlights of Tony Kukoc making tough jumpers for game winners, something he'd been shown to do. So it's unfortunate for Sky that happened to him, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when I talk about the best sports documentaries as a whole, and if this is the one. But just like the way that Sky's been portrayed throughout this documentary has been unfortunate for him, because obviously his missteps have been highlighted, but his greatness hasn't reached that same level of like admiration. Where like I said, every time he screws up, like the migraine game, the surgery, the contract thing, the quitting on the team, which was wrong and deserved to be brought up, and he deserved to be rated for that. But that's not as highlighted as well as how well he played that season or how well he was alongside MJ and everything like that. It's not the level's not the same, unfortunately, for Scotty. So it stinks for him. But yeah, it's an interesting part. But yeah, so I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff to talk about in these episodes, and I did a lot of talking about things. So there's stuff I'm going to miss. But overall, it was the general gist of what happened in episode 7. So after this next break, we're going to come back and talk about what happened in episode 8 and kind of just maybe a little bit of what we expect to see in episodes 9 and 10, because obviously they weren't finished. I think episode 9 just finished like a week or so ago, and I don't even know if episode 10 is officially done yet. It's probably finished sometime this week. So if they're still working on it, I mean, I can only imagine what they're trying to put into it or how long they're going to make it. Well, I guess it's probably still going to be the 2 hours, but they got a lot of stuff to fill in these last 2 episodes, so it'll be interesting to see what they touch on. So we'll talk about that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, episode 8, that was kind of, yet again, another illustration of just anything that you can, or maybe even didn't do, to slight MJ will be used against you on the basketball court. Because they talked about the first B.J. Armstrong game, where he was with the Hornets, where he had a great game 2. Hit like a quintessential game winner, and that then after that he yelled at, like, he said something to the benches, said something on the court to like Jordan and the guys, just kind of like, because he was riled up about it, understandably so. Obviously you're slaying the evil I don't say evil empire, like they were like they were the I don't know if evil empire is the right word, term for it, but regardless, again, just trying to defeat them was a task in and of itself. So whenever people would do it, especially when you were a part of the team in the past, obviously they showed with late in the episode with Horace Grant just how much pride or happiness he took in being able to beat the Bulls with the Magic. Obviously, I mean, I think they lifted him up on their shoulders, his teammates did when they beat them. Obviously, it didn't really matter. For also the Rockets, they got swept. Unfortunate for Nick Anderson, because obviously if he makes one free throw, those things go. That series probably goes differently. Well, I mean, it obviously goes differently because they don't get swept. But yeah, so it was funny to see that. But then, as we saw with that example and the other examples throughout the episode, was that whenever you give Jordan something to use as fuel, he will use it, and it normally won't turn out well for you. Because I think another thing Glenn was talking about, that like it was cool in the moment, but obviously it backfired on them big time, because obviously I don't think they won another game. Jordan made it his personal mission kind of to attack B.J. Armstrong both offensively and defensively whenever he could, and work out for him. Then I think there was the other guy from, I think it was Washington, Bradford Smith, who had like a great game randomly against the Bulls. In like just like a random, it was like obviously it was a random game, but it was just like, it was the regular season game. It just happened. Sometimes players get hot. Corey Brewers had like a 50-point game, I believe. Terrence Ross has had like a 50-point game too, I believe. Like sometimes players just get hot. It happens. He had like 37. And then obviously there was a story that came out that he came around and told Mike good game afterwards because obviously he didn't play that well. Then they were playing them on a back-to-back. They flew into Washington. He was like, I'm going to have what he had in the first half. And in true Jordan nature, he did. He had 36 at halftime of the game just to kind of spite the Bradford Smith. And then obviously comes to find out that never even happened. Like that's like him telling him a good game never even happened. He literally just made it up so that he could get himself back in the mode to attack him the next game. And that just, again, it just perfectly illustrates the competitor and maybe even lunatic that, in a good way, I guess you could say, that Jordan was. Because, like I said, anything he thought he could use, whether like real or imagined, anything he thought he could use as motivation, he's going to use it. And like I said, it worked for him. Not going to work for everybody else because that's, again, not everybody, or not going to work in every other profession because you can't just like if you're like a doctor, I don't know if that works, or maybe I don't even know if like if you're a lawyer, how that wouldn't work if you're just like, I'm gonna go win this case despite you. Like, no, you're gonna win the case because you kind of like have to. A person's livelihood and whether or not they get jail time is on the line, depending on if you're like a prosecutor or a defense attorney. But yes, I'm saying like very few lines of work does this way of thinking manufacture itself in a. And I don't even know if you want to call it healthy, but just manufacture itself in a good way. Like very few lines of work can you do this, and obviously again you're going to be called crazy, but like will it actually work for you? Where you can just like take that with perceived motivation, take it out on somebody on the court, then obviously, or take it out on the field of play or wherever, the office, wherever you're going to be. Like I said, that doesn't normally work with most other lines of work, but it worked for Jordan, and it worked for Kobe to another degree. I don't know if it's the same way with the made up stories, but. They said they were wired differently. And maybe you have to be wired differently to be that great at something. Whether, like I said, it's sports or just any other occupation. In order to be great, you kind of have to have this, no one believes in me, or I need to, or this way to motivate yourself. Because obviously, once you've achieved something, it can get kind of mundane, can kind of stale. That's why it's hard to go back to back. It's hard to three-peat. Because once you've reached the top, it's hard to get that motivation up again to do it again. Because you've already done it. So it takes such kind of competitor be able to keep that going. Obviously, if you're better than everyone, then you're better than everyone. That helps. That's not to say the Warriors didn't have a lot of motivation, but at the end of the day, once they had KD, they were just better than everyone else, so they could turn it on, turn it off whenever they wanted to. But with Jordan, it was just always on. And, hey, that worked for him, so that was good. So, yeah, I felt bad for the Bradford Smith, wherever he's at, whatever he's doing. He kind of got the brunt of that for no real good reason. Just off of a a legitimately made up slight by Jordan is what used motivation so you could attack that man the next day. Just crazy. But then we finally get the return of Jordan in this episode. Well, not finally, but they talk about the return of Jordan from his retirement, which is kind of funny because that's another reason why the conspiracy of the suspension really is kind of weird to me. Because he was going to play baseball that year had they not had the strike. Like, once the strike happened, he's like, all right, I'm good off this. But it was just funny, like, people think they're like, oh, we were just, 18 months, and, it was perfect time. Like, no, I don't think, like I said, that would be a really elaborate ruse if David Stern was just going to be like, all right, we're going to have you come back right towards the end of the season. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he would only do that because, like I said, once he didn't have anything to focus on, he's like, he needed to channel that energy, that competitive nature into something. And obviously, it was just the Bulls weren't that great that year. He was able to, B.J. Armstrong was able to convince him to come by the practice facility one time. Then obviously, I led to him a couple other times, and eventually he came back. The infamous, no, I guess not infamous, the famous I'm back facts. But it was just funny, that kind of posting another hole in that. And like I said, I like good conspiracy theory. I understand why people think like that, but just in practicality, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for David Stern to suspend his biggest cash cow. And be like, yeah, no, I understand, just for, the publicity. If you're really as capitalistic and as worried about making money as people think David Stern is, then why would you're going to lose money doing that. obviously, you could argue this, but to most people, they believe all publicity is good publicity because obviously they're talking about you. So even if it's not necessarily all good things about Jordan, they're still talking about Jordan, still watching him and whatever. You're still making money that way. Like, why would he just be like, hey, let's get the heat off you? Because it's not, again, as we've seen, it's not like he just like stopped gambling at that time. It was always going to be with him. That's just kind of the way he is. So then it's just like, that didn't make a lot of sense. But yes, and Jordan returns, comes back with the 4-5. Was kind of weird to watch because it's just like why is he wearing a different number? But I guess what was it like? I forget exactly, but I don't know if they said the reason why. Well, I guess he was saying like the fresh start and everything. That was the first time without his dad and everything. But it's like it's not like I don't think it was retired or whatever. It was just weird. It was weird. So he came back. They ended up getting to the semifinals. They lost to the Magic in the semifinals, I believe. Right? Is it Yeah, I think it was the semifinals. They lost to the Magic, and obviously and I think it was Nick Anderson had the quote like, "Oh, 45 is in 23," and maybe he wasn't because again, if you're playing baseball and then you go switch to basketball immediately, like the things you need to do, the way you need to train, like each sport works different muscles, and you need different things in order to be good at them, and the way you train for baseball is not the same way you would train for basketball. So. Obviously, again, I know people kind of argue like, oh, but he was back when he had the double nickel game. Like, yeah, but like when you're great, you can have great moments. But doesn't mean, like I said, we saw when he was on the Wizards, he said great moments, but he just wasn't at his peak performance. And as we saw he kind of just looked kind of run down by the end. Granted, I didn't watch, so maybe I'm wrong about that. You are more than welcome to tell me, those of you that lived through it and remember it better than I do. Or I will, because obviously I don't have no memory of it because I didn't see it. So I'm only watching highlights and stuff. But from the way it looked, it seemed like he was kind of tired, and the Bulls weren't that good that year. Even though they obviously had Jordan back, they kind of gave them a little boost, but like they weren't that good that year. They had different issues that they had, and obviously they didn't have really any answer for Horace or Shaq at that time. So it was understandable why they lost, but that was interesting. But then it was just crazy to see, like, again, when this was, I guess at least this was real, but just like because that happened. And I guess I forget if it was Bushler or like Bill Winnington or somebody. Well, one of his teammates was talking about how that was really the best thing that ever happened to them because had Jordan just come back and they just gone back to the finals and won, like obviously like it's still great because you win a championship, but I don't know if they have the same level of motivation. Maybe they don't come back as good as they did the year after because obviously as we saw. They had the 72-10 season the year after that, but that summer he was training hard, even though he was shooting Space Jam at the time. They built the whole gym, had like the first like they had like a fake Drew League, if you will, it was just like the best players come and play together, and just run, pick up, and call your own fouls and do everything. Just like it's a combination of all the greatest players, and he'd use that obviously to get himself back in shape, but also kind of see where okay, when I left, these people were good, and now I'm back, and there's new people that are good. So let me kind of get a better understanding of who these new guys are. And obviously it worked out for them because all that training, all that workout, even I guess maybe the fight he had with Steve Kerr before the season kind of brought the team together and obviously gained and he was able to, his teammates were able to gain his respect, and obviously they went out and had a 72-10 season. Arguably, I mean in my opinion, the best single season team ever. Have 7-2-10 weren't as good as the 7-9 Warriors, but they also did win the finals. So it's like, did they have the better record? No. Well, regular season record, no. But they won the finals, and I guess they had the highest overall winning percentage because again they won the finals. So it's like it's hard to argue against that being the best team, and that maybe that doesn't happen if they beat Orlando. Well, I guess obviously we'll never know, but I think that that was a pivotal point because obviously whenever Jordan fails or feels slighted or whatever. He comes back harder and stronger, so it was important for that even at that time where he was trying to come back, he needed that extra motivation, and that gave it. Then that series, you could argue, gave it to him, and then like they say, the rest is history. So that was cool for them to dive deeper into that, and also just like in the Space Jam training camp thing was kind of cool. But yeah, so next week the last 2 episodes. Actually, wait before I get on that. It was just like that. And I guess that's the one thing that they probably have done, or at least what they did with the Sonics specifically, was they kind of tried to downplay them a little bit, because that team was good, like very good, like, but they kind of reduced Sean Kemp to just like what's his name? I think they called him Gary Payton's like alley-oop partner, or that's what the soundbite they used to describe him, and I'm like, that's not fair to Sean Kemp. Obviously, he's not Michael Jordan or whatever, but he wasn't like nobody at the time. That team was very good. So just like it wasn't, I felt that was kind of unfair to the Sonics. And also, I guess that was interesting because obviously not having watched it, is to see the fact that well, I'll touch on that in a second. But just to see the fact that my mind's always working 100 miles a minute during these things. Just see the fact that George Karl didn't use Gary Payton, his best defender, on MJ sooner, which obviously I would imagine he regrets and would do differently if he did it over again. But they kind of just were like, oh, we need to make sure Gary Payton's right for offense, which I get. But at the same time, if you can't stop Jordan, you're not going to win. So like that seems like it'd be very important. So they didn't start using him until I think it was like around like after they're already down 3-0. They started putting him on Jordan more. And obviously they still lost the series anyway, but it's like had they done it after game 2 or game 3, maybe they're not down 3-0. Maybe they're down 2-1, or maybe they're even up 2-1. Who knows what would have happened if Gary Payton was on him? Because obviously he did a good job, even though, as the kids like to say, there was a lot of cap from Jordan when discussing the glove. Because I think I saw this stat on Twitter, which I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Don't know how true it is, but obviously everyone knows that Gary Payton did a better job on him than anyone else on the Sonics. But I thought I saw a stat that he shot like 22 of 60 when guarded by Gary Payton. And honestly, even in that last game, I think he only had like 22. He had a good average for the series. Just like in those last couple games, he was shooting a little bit worse. I think it was game 4 was a 6 for 19 game. So obviously we saw that he had his struggles with Gary Payton, whether he wants to admit it or not. But at least it created for great meme content, so that was kind of funny. Just like him laughing at Gary Payton describing how he had trouble with him. I mean, again, it's easy to say that you didn't have trouble with him when you won. You wouldn't be able to say that if you lost, but I mean, H. Jordan, I wouldn't expect him. He doesn't seem like to give unnecessary props type. So it's like, hey, you lost to me. Obviously, you didn't do a good job of containing him, because if you had, then you would have won. So I get why Jordan said that. But it was just funny that people were out arguing like, oh, he said that about Gary, but like he actually did do a really good job on him. So it was just funny to hear that. But then, Lewis, I was going to touch on this. This is one last thing, kind of another example was that they were sitting in a restaurant. I guess him and Ahmad Rashad, maybe some other people, but those were the two that talked about it. And like George Karl, was in the restaurant and like walked by Mike without saying anything, and he used that as fuel. It was just like I'm saying, just like that episode in the last couple episodes, it just showed that like he will literally anything you do, good or bad, against him, will cause him to be extra motivated next time he sees you. Whether it's like you compliment him or you said something, or you didn't compliment him and you didn't say anything, or like just nothing at all happened, he just imagines it. Like he will use literally everything as motivation. So they did find that funny. I think when George Karl was on with Scott Van Pelt on like the after like Sports Saturday, he did admit that story was actually true. That he did actually ignore MJ at the time, which I mean I get competitive. If you're like he's a competitor, you don't want to acknowledge him, but maybe you should have, because he decided he was going to take it down the Sonics, and obviously they went down 3-0. The Sonics did beforehand. Before obviously things started changing around a little bit, but in the event, at the end of the day, they lost the series, so it's unfortunate. But yeah, so then, like I said, we got the last 2 episodes coming up. Will be interesting to see kind of what they touch on, and those obviously will be very Jazz centric. Those are the 2 teams that played in those 2 finals. Last couple of years now, so we kind of like tie up the whole Last Dance storyline. I'm curious to see like where they're going to end it off at. Like they're going to end it off with his last game with the Bulls, or they're going to touch on anything post Bulls. That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, like I said, 2 parts. They've done a good job up to this point. I don't expect anything differently for the last 2 episodes. I'm just kind of curious how they're going to tie it all up. Because obviously they've had a plan. They've been going year by year to try to get up to this point. But now that they're basically here, I guess we got to touch on the Pacers series too. Because that was the year they ended off with that. We're just Reggie Miller saying that he was like, this is our time. I'm going to be the guy to retire Michael Jordan. And in fairness, Michael Jordan did retire, but it wasn't because of Reggie Miller. So that's unfortunate. But they did give him a good run that series. It took him to 7. So it's not like it was nothing. But like I said, didn't work out for the Pacers, unfortunately. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they tie it all together. So I know I'll be tuned in. I would advise you to tune in, and if you haven't already, you can catch up. I think they're on demand, or you can watch them on ESPN Plus, or I know they show them. I think they're probably gonna do a long marathon before. So if you don't have anything to do next Sunday, you can watch it all leading up to probably starting at 1, I would say, because it goes 8 hours. I would imagine, because that's what they've been doing the past couple of weeks. We just replaying some of the older episodes. So that would make sense, just have it all replayed, because not ESPN's really showing all that much right now anyway. So yeah, if you haven't caught up, I'd advise you to do so, because it's a great documentary. So you kind of want to see how it ends. I want to see how it ends. So it'll be interesting to see how it does end. But yeah, so after this break, we're going to come back in here and we're going to talk about in the last episode a little bit that there was going to be a call with Adam Silver and the players. Well, that call took place on Friday, and there was some interesting quotes that came from that call. So we're going to discuss them and whether they make sense, or how the NBA is kind of going to handle this comeback from this whole post-Rona sports world. So yeah, we'll touch on all that right after this break. So stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again with GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver prepared players on Friday for potentially a grim landscape amid the coronavirus pandemic, suggesting there are no guarantees when fans could fully return to NBA arenas next season. And as we talk about with the UFC, sports can be done without fans, but it's just weird. So it'll be interesting to see how basketball and stuff like that, where there's a lot of cheering. I mean, all sports is cheering and stuff going on. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, because the UFC was kind of weird. Didn't watch the whole card, but like some of the clips I saw was just like weird watching it with no fans and just hearing nothing but like the announcers talking. But yeah, so this is all from ESPN. From Woj, this article he wrote. Silver said that 40% of the league's revenue comes from money built around game nights in arenas. This could potentially turn out to be the single greatest challenge of our lives, Silver told the players. The tone of the call overall was pretty respected, but obviously Silver had to answer some tough questions about safety, return to play ideas, how future seasons would be affected, and the financial realities of future salary caps and basketball-related income. So if there's no decision on returning to play this season, that no decision needed to be made like anytime soon. So it doesn't need. There might necessarily be a decision to like June, maybe even later. So that's an interesting aspect. Just like whenever a decision, or maybe they decide when a decision needs to be made, because that'll obviously affect when it returns and how quickly the next season can start. Silver said to returning to play the season at one or two potential sites, such as like Orlando or Las Vegas, made the most sense. Obviously, he added that there's no point in adding risk for flying from huge city to city if there's not going to be any fans, which is fair. Because there's no home court advantage if there's no fans. It's just you're just playing in the arena. We think it would be safer in a single location or two locations to start. Silver allowed that there would need to be some restrictions in place at a single or two site scenario, but he told players the goal isn't to have you go to a market for 2 months to sit in a hotel room. The commissioner also expressed the desire that the NBA season is completed and it's with a traditional playoff structure, 7-game series, obviously for each. Well, I guess no, because is the first one always 7 or is it 5? I think it's always been 7. It's always 7 now. I know it was 5 for a while. But he left open the possibility that playing tournaments could accommodate teams if, in the resumption of like obviously they don't finish out the regular season in total to make it fair for everybody. Playing tournament, he also told them that the next season could be pushed back until December, whether they finish out this season or not. He reminded them that everything must be collectively bargained through the NBPA, the NBA Players Association. He told players about the current collective bargaining agreement that obviously was not built for an extended pandemic, so this is everybody's going through new things. So it's hard to base what has already been discussed in the collective bargaining agreement into something like this, because it wasn't built for this. It was built for a normal season, a normal landscape. This is obviously much different what they're dealing with now. As for return to play the season, Silver indicated discussions around training camp length and resumption of the season centered on a minimum of 3 weeks. Silver said that the NBA's hope would be that players who test positive for COVID-19 won't require shutting down a team or a season, which is a very interesting point, which we'll get to in a second, but only the removal of a player amid persistent testing of those who had come in contact with him. Silver expressed confidence that there would be enough mass testing available in the United States. Don't know about that. For the league to feel confident by using such a large number of tests once the NBA is ready to play in the next couple of months. Silver said we won't be taking tests from needy people. Debatable. Sources told ESPN that the league estimates it would need in the neighborhood of 15,000 tests to resume and complete the season. That's a lot. Some of the guys on the call asked Silver to remind teams that they're now let the pressure players. I think Chris Paul brought up this point, was that like some guys would maybe be feeling the pressure, be like, hey, the practice facility's open, like go work out, and they have to make sure that they mention that to Silver, and obviously Silver's going to have to relate it to the owners and stuff to not pressure the guys to come back, because obviously if they don't feel like it's safe, they shouldn't be forced to work out in these practice facilities, because they don't know who's been handling what or how clean it's going to be. Obviously at your house, you know how clean everything is more or less, because you know how much you're cleaning it. If you're not doing the cleaning, then you don't know how well it's being cleaned. So that's a important part, just like not to force guys to have to practice in the facility if they don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's an interesting thing. I definitely have to get on the owners about that. And Silver also said that if it is happening, that the owners are doing that, it was disheartening, and he assured them that the organization would be reminded. And he also said that until there's a vaccine or some cocktail preventing people from dying from the disease, we are going to be dealing with this collectively. The ultimate issue is how much risk we're all comfortable taking. So, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that he talked about there. But the one thing I wanted to talk about first was the whole player contraction thing. Because that's obviously, with everything starting back up, that's going to be the biggest point. Is like, what happens if or when a player tests positive? Because it's probably going to happen. As we saw at the White House. Like, they're testing people, even though they're not, like, their prominent figures aren't wearing masks around or whatever, which is weird. But they're testing people, it seems like, almost every day. If you're to believe what is coming out of the White House. It's your prerogative if you choose to believe them or not. But there's a lot of people that are testing positive within the White House right now. Or just that are related to the White House. Maybe not necessarily in the White House, but related to the White House that are testing positive for COVID-19. And if they're getting tested all the time and it's still happening, there's no reason to believe that it won't happen in the NBA or NHL or MLS, MLB, NFL when it happens. Until the virus is gone or there's a vaccine or something, it's going to happen. So, like I said, the important thing is what do you do when it happens? And it seems like the NBA is taking a very dangerous approach, in my opinion. Because, like I said, if they were so worried about it before that they shut everything down, what changes now? Kind of understand you're going to be testing people all the time, which, again, whether that's right or not is debatable. Because, again, like I said, there are some people that still can't get the test if they need it. Not in every state, but there are some states where it is harder to get tested than others. And the NBA can just get 15,000 tests that they need. And I don't even know if that's enough. It might be more. Because I said, you have to test these people almost every day. If not every day. Because if you don't, then if you test them like once a week or twice a week, and you find out at the end of the week somebody tested positive, you don't know how many people they've had in contact with. They might have played games already before that. So it would just be too dangerous. You probably got to test them or take their temperature or something every day. That's what other countries are doing that are trying to get stuff back together. That's what they've had to do just because it's too dangerous any other way. But if that's the case, and the guy tests positive, like, how can you just be like, we're just going to quarantine that guy? Because, again, you could have it for a while before either A, any symptoms show up, or B, you test positive for it. So there's potential that they could have played games with it already. And that's the last thing you need is that you need an outbreak within the team, or you want an outbreak within the team, or you don't want an outbreak within the league, because there's a chance that that's something that could potentially happen. And like I said, that's dangerous. Because if you have a whole team, not a whole team, but it's like a good portion of the team that gets it. Does that team forfeit? Like, how can anybody feel comfortable playing that team knowing 2, 3, 4 guys on the team catch it? That's the same thing even with the Gobert situation. Had they not caught it before the game, like had these tested positive for after the game, who knows how many people who would have been affected by it? Because obviously it just hurt him and Mitchell, but maybe if he doesn't hurt, maybe he infects more of his own team. Obviously he's going to infect some of the Thunder players, maybe some of their staff, some of the refs. It's just like if you just, like I said, depending on when you catch it, that could be an important part. If you don't catch it beforehand and you let them play, and then obviously you find out after the fact, then it's a whole mess. And like I said, if you play a game and a guy tests positive after the game, the whole team that they just played, including their own team, has to be quarantined. You can't have them play anybody else. No one would feel comfortable that way. So I'm saying it's very dangerous, in my opinion, to be like, oh, if somebody tests positive, we're just going to quarantine that one player. Because they've already been in contact with people. They've been in contact with their own team. They've potentially been in contact with other teams. You can't do that. If somebody tests positive, you basically got to quarantine that whole team. Even if they test negative. Even if you test everybody, they're negative. How can another team feel comfortable knowing that someone on the team that they're about to play tested positive for it? And maybe their symptoms the stuff hasn't shown up yet. Because I think the incubation period can be anywhere from like 5 to 14 days. So maybe they have it, and they just don't know it yet. And like I said, maybe they do have it, and then like you gotta shove everybody on the team. Like I said, it's just that seems a little dangerous. I mean, I understand the point is if you're gonna start it back up, you don't want to you want to finish it because you don't want it to end again. Because if you shut it down again, it's over. You're basically there's not much you can do with the season. You can't like try to start up a third time. It's not worth it. But at the same time, it's dangerous to try to force yourself to get through the season by just trying to pluck people out here and there that have it. It's just like it seems a little too dangerous. to me. Now again, maybe they'll get lucky and no one will get it in like the 2-month span. Not impossible, but like maybe that'll happen. And then, hey, you don't gotta worry about it. Like I said, one of these 4 seasons is going to start up, and it's going to happen. And the way that they handle it will affect the way everybody else handles it, in my opinion. If it happens in like I said, it happens in the NBA again, or happens in the NHL or MLS, MLB or something, it's be interesting to see the reaction to it. Because again, when it happened in the NBA, everybody shut down, even the guys that didn't have any positive. Like NHL, I don't think had anyone at that time, but they still shut it down. The states shut it down. Other leagues shut it down. Like everything got shut down just because one guy in the NBA tested positive for it. It's like I'm saying, I would be crazy just to say that happened again and just everyone's like, oh, okay, business as usual. That'd be kind of nuts, in my personal opinion. So, interesting to see how that handled. And also, obviously, the guidelines and configurations for how these 1-city or 2-city setups would work. Like I said, not only do you have to test because in my opinion, I mean, and maybe this isn't the NBA's job, you got to test the staff, wherever they're staying, you got to test all those people every day too. Like, again, you let one sick staff member goes untested, and he or she could infect countless amounts of people. So I'm saying, just it's a dangerous game. I understand they're focused on their own, but again, if you're going to have it, you have to be able to have enough to test everybody. You can't just be the players or the coaches or the refs or whoever. You got to test everybody involved. The people that turn on the lights, people that clean the arenas, people that, like I said, change the sheets, people that cook their food. Everybody has to get tested at all times. Or they got to be wearing masks or gloves or something. Like, you can't just have people going about willy-nilly and then just test the players. Maybe that doesn't seem like a bright idea. Maybe that's not what they're worried about. But, like I said, all this is going to be interesting. I mean, no, it doesn't seem like there's any rush for them to start this back up, but if and when it starts back up, it'll be interesting to see how it's handled, because that'll be very important, not just for them, but also for the future of other sports in this country. So obviously, I think other places are going to try to do this whole no fan thing. And I said, we're going to talk about the UFC in a second. And like, the event went down, it was cool, it was good from everything that I've read, but honestly, the one guy contracted it before, or test positive before the fight, the event even took place. So they had to cancel his fight. And obviously, it'd be interesting to see if anybody on that back end of this comes out with it. Because if that happens, then yeah, you might as well just cancel. You might as well kiss sports goodbye for the year, in my opinion. Because the UFC is not that many people, but also there's a lot of close contact, which is what most of these sports are going to be: sweat, blood, different bodily fluids falling on each other or whatever. You're in close quarters with people. There's not even that many people involved in the UFC. And if somebody in them catches it, I mean, how can you stop 30 teams in different sports leagues from passing it along to somebody? It just seems unlikely. But yeah, so like I said, the UFC event, it happened, so we're going to talk about it. So we will touch on that right after this break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Podcast. So, UFC 249 definitely got off to a rough start when Ronaldo Souza, who was scheduled to fight Uriah Hall on Saturday in Jacksonville, tested positive for the coronavirus. The obviously was immediately pulled. But they said they were going to go through with the rest of the event, which they obviously did. Apparently, Souza and two of his cornermen, they examined him. The UFC's medical team examined Souza and two of his cornermen and found them to be currently asymptomatic or not exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. As per the UFC's health and safety protocols, all three men have left the host hotel and will be self-isolating off premises, where UFC's medical team will monitor their conditions remotely and provide assistance where any necessary treatment, like whenever there's treatments necessary. So they had the event because obviously the other athletes tested negative. But that's interesting, because they were at the hotel already when it was confirmed they were positive. And even though they were asymptomatic, how much engagement did they have with the other fighters? That's what I'm saying. We'll have to judge this in like a week or two to see what happened with this event. Like, does everyone come out of this on the back? And now, it's hard to say because like you don't know exactly when they would have gotten it, or even if they got it from Souza. They could have gotten it from somewhere else. We really won't know. Like I said, if you come out the end of this and people have it, whether, again, it's Souza's fault or someone else's fault, because maybe Souza got it from someone else. Who knows how he got it. You know what I'm saying? If that goes left and a couple of the athletes come out of this event with the COVID-19, like I said, it's going to look very shaky in terms of trying to bring sports back, because it's just like anytime you bring these guys together from wherever they've been, it's hard to say for certain if they're going to have it or not. Because like I said, you could test positive, and as like I mentioned with the White House, like they were talking about the one of the staff members, he was like, she was testing positive, she was testing negative, she tested negative, and then all of a sudden it pops up positive, because that's how viruses work. So it's like it's the same thing with any sort of test. It's like you take it, and then like just because you were negative the day before does not mean you're going to then be negative the day after. Like, that's not how these things work. Eventually, if you have it, it's going to pop up. And I mean, at this point, it's safe to assume that any of us have already had it, or maybe carriers, or maybe have the antibody, something. Like, it's hard to imagine that this many people haven't had it, whether we know or we didn't know. Because obviously it's been around for a while, and the testing situation and the severity of it was very shaky in the beginning. So who knows, people that, I know I was sick for like a week or so, back in like February, it was right around when they started canceling stuff. So I think March, when the NBA like had its last game March 11th, that was like right towards the end of my sickness. And I'm not going to say it necessarily was that, because some of my symptoms were a little bit different, but I mean, I was sick for legitimately like a week. Like, I legitimately didn't go out to dinner with my family because my sister, she was home from college at the time, which obviously she's been home since then. And now, because it was like her spring break, and we're all going to go out to dinner, and I was like, nah, I can't do it. I don't feel great. And also, I was just like, I was starting to get a little bit worried about the Rona, just because at that time, the NBA had canceled everything, so it was like a little bit more serious, because I could argue a lot of people in America, I mean, granted, there's people in America that aren't taking it serious now, but a lot of people weren't taking it serious up until sports started getting canceled, which is, I mean, fair. But like I said, once that happened, that caused me to be a little bit more cautious. I'll say that, so it's just hard to say for certain how this is going to turn out for the UFC. But with the other stuff that went down, it all went pretty good in terms of the other fights. You had the big fight, which was the main event fight was the Ferguson versus Gaethje. I think that's how you pronounce it, Justin Gaethje. Because obviously it was supposed to be Ferguson and Khabib, I think, if I remember correctly. But then I'm gonna double check that for you guys. It was supposed to be Ferguson and Khabib, and obviously Khabib backed out for whatever reason. The high anticipated interim lightweight championship was scheduled for 2009. UFC 209 was been canceled. I want to make sure this is from like a recent thing, well, let me put it this way. That fight's been getting pushed back for forever now, it seems like. And now, Ferguson lost, so who knows if it's ever going to happen. Yeah, cool. So like I'm saying, so now it's just like, if it's, who knows, maybe Gaethje fights Khabib instead. Maybe it just doesn't happen. I don't know. Yeah, that was supposed to be the big fight. It obviously didn't happen at this UFC event, and like I said, with Ferguson losing resoundingly, even though obviously I know he was a little bit mad at the end from what I remember seeing a little bit, or from seeing on the timeline. Like Gaethje kind of dominated him for all 5 rounds, so it's like you could only imagine what Khabib would have done to him again. But maybe it's just like a lot of just like all sports. It's about matchups. Some teams or some players or some fighters are just bad matchups. It doesn't matter how good you are or maybe how well you would do against somebody else. This specific person just doesn't, what they do well, you do poorly, and obviously in a fight like that could be an issue. Or a fight like this, that could be an issue. So maybe that's just kind of what Ferguson ran into. Maybe he would do better versus Khabib. Being now with Gaethje, like I said, with his performance, now you kind of got like, oh, what does he do next? Like, could he fight Khabib? I think they were talking about back after Conor fought. They're talking about maybe that'd be a potential matchup for him. I also got to see again how this coronavirus stuff goes, because that'll be a big deal with that. If they have to push back more events or even cancel more events, then all this is a moot point. But assuming that, not assuming, because I know they're going to try to put on more events, but I guess kind of assuming that they're going to be able to get these events to go off, then, hey, we'll have to see what's next for Gaethje and what's next for Ferguson, because obviously I know Khabib tweeted out no comment after the fact, so it doesn't sound like he's pressed about that fight at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see when he does return to the octagon, who it will be against. Also, they had the one guy, Henry Cejudo, who had just knocked out Dominic Cruz, and then he retired immediately after winning that fight, which again, John Doe and some other guys tweeted out that it was just more of like a money thing, because it would like a guy retiring, because he's not like an older guy, like he's only he's 33, which is like not that young, but again, like he just won a title, or just the he just won, so it's like why would he retire so abruptly? But it seems like he just wants the new contract. So at the end of the day, it is all about money. So you had that. You had who was it? Francis Ngannou versus some guy Rosenstruck in the heavyweight fight that like literally lasted 20 seconds, which was absurd. And like I said, you could find that whole fight on like Twitter. Someone tweeted it out. It was kind of funny. He just knocked him out. I think it was like 10th fast or something. It's high up there in the quickest knockouts in the UFC. It was nice and quick. The guy was going backwards, just caught him with one, and if you catch somebody with the right punch, they're gonna get knocked out immediately. And then from there, it's just like, all right, you got to just stop the fight. And he didn't even like. This funny thing is like if you see the slow mo of it, he's not even hitting him that many times after that. But it's like the one punch was just enough, and like the referees had to come in and stop it. So I said you had that, which was good. You had Greg Hardy fight, I believe. There were just a lot of interesting moments from the UFC event, because obviously, not obviously, but I wasn't watching the whole thing because my sister's virtual graduation was on Saturday, so I was like doing a lot of celebrating for that, and so I wouldn't obviously, because I'm not usually a guy that buys pay-per-views for my house. I'll go out and hang out with friends, and like we'll watch it, or we'll split it, or we go out to like a restaurant or something. Now, so you can't do that. But it was just nice to see the timeline and sports media talking about live sports again. Because they had a little bit with the Korean baseball, but not the same thing. This is like America, or sports on U.S. soil being discussed, and obviously I could see why the UFC wanted to make sure this event went on, because they were like the only thing SportsCenter really talked about that night, which, usually they get like a couple segments here and there, probably like the bigger fights, but that's really all they talked about, because there's nothing else to do, or nothing else to talk about. So I understand why the UFC was adamant, or Dana White was adamant on putting this on, because, again, if you can pull it off, and you're talking the sports world for an entire night because there's literally nothing to compete with. Now, normally you would have like playoff basketball or something else to compete with, so you're probably like third or fourth on the storylines or like on the docket for like topics for El Show Center. And then also maybe not everybody would have watched all the fights live if they knew, like obviously like if the Lakers were playing or something like that. But because there's nothing else, hey, you might as well capitalize with that. So I respect Dana White for doing that and pulling it off again to this point. But it'll be interesting to see kind of the fallout from this, not necessarily in a bad way, but just like does everybody continue to be corona free? How many more events can they pull off before something happens? Like stuff like that. Because like I said, one night, no one catch anything on one night or one weekend. Cool, but you gotta, in order for like sports to return, you gotta do this for months. You can't just do this one night. It's not like you have one event and then like you're done. It's like they're gonna play one NBA game and then like the season's over. You gotta do this night in, night out for weeks and weeks and months on end. So I'm saying if the UFC can't even go a couple events without having something go wrong, then how can you expect the NBA and like I said, NHL, NFL when they try to come back? How can you expect them to last a whole, especially NFL, how do you expect them to have a whole 4-month season plus the playoffs without anybody catching anything? That was again said, like with the guy, they took him out of the hotel immediately, which is great. As soon as that tested positive, but it's like he may have already been in contact with someone, so it may have already been too late for the next person. Even though you caught him, which is cool, and his 2 cornermen, but you don't know who else they were interacting with. You don't know who else they were engaging with before they found out their positive test. Because obviously, until you test positive, you don't think you have anything. But then once you test positive, then it's like, oh, okay, so maybe you go around definitely the same thing. If you have any sort of type of infection or disease or whatever, no one usually assumes they have anything until they have to assume that they have something because they have it. I'm saying their actions leading up to that moment may have endangered others. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see the fallout, but like I said, it's just cool to have live sports in any capacity to watch and to discuss and see talked about on Twitter again, because most of the stuff you've been watching is either the Last Dance documentary or just replays of old games, really all of the sports we've really had, or the draft. Obviously, the draft gave us some good live content, but outside of that, I mean, we've been fiending for stuff, and I appreciate the UFC for at least providing us with that, even if it's only for one night or if it's only going to be for a couple nights here and there. Like I said, it's more than nothing, so we will all appreciate that. But yes, I'm interested, like I said, interesting to see what happens with Ferguson, interesting to see what happens with Gaethje, interesting to see what happens with that Cejudo guy that obviously like retired, but maybe he doesn't. Cejudo, I should say. And interesting to see what happens with Ngannou. Because obviously, like I said, you knock out a guy in 20 seconds, and all his fights, I think, have been getting stopped in the first round for KOs or TKOs or whatever. So, it's like, what's next for him? Because obviously, it seems to be like a guy's kind of rising up the ranks pretty quickly with all these quick knockouts. But, like I said, it seems like Dana White's adamant on putting on events, so we will be finding out things shortly with whether it's not these fighters or if it's other fighters. Whoever, we'll have more UFC stuff, content to talk about, I think, very soon. Which, again, like I said, shout out to Dana White. Is it a great idea? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're going to do it, we're going to watch. Also, I guess one more thing I wanted to touch on was like the empty arena thing. I think it was one of the fighters talking about like he was listening to the announcer more than he was listening to his own corner, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, that aspect of it is going to be weird. Because obviously, like, every time there's a big knockout, you can hear the roar of the crowd, you can see everybody standing up, you can hear everybody cheering. Even just, like, when there's a good fight, that energy is, like, it's just kind of gone. And obviously, there were good fights on the card, so that they didn't suffer that much. But, like I said, watching sports without, or playing sports without any fans is definitely going to be a new experience for someone, so, or not someone, for everyone. So I know it's easy when it's just, like, the two of you in a ring, or an octagon, if you will, but it'd be interesting to see when it's, like, 5-on-5, or, like, in we have like the NHL return, the MLS return, or like the NFL trials return, just like to see how the no fans thing affects the players. Because obviously a lot of guys can feed off that energy, whether good or bad, or whether home or away. And with that, not taking like there's no home or away in a boxing ring or like in octagon. There's none of that. But like with other sports or team sports, there is. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, just because the crowd's in such a big part of the fan, not just the fan experience, but also the atmosphere and the energy within the game that is being played. So I don't know how you're going to be able to replicate that. Or maybe it's for the best. Maybe it kind of evens the playing field for those, because obviously teams can come out a little flat on the road, or obviously get spooked by the crowd noise or whatever. But now it's just going to be, if there's no crowd noise, just straight up, who's the better team. So maybe there'll be less upsets or less surprises, if you will, because like I said, you don't have that crowd to feed off of. If you're an underdog, or you're in a team that's looking for an upset, if you will, that's playing well, you don't have that energy to feed off the crowd, keep them, well, if you believe in the concept of momentum, to keep that momentum going. Now you have to just do it yourself. And like I said, that maybe takes some certain distancing, it takes some getting used to. But that'll be interesting to see. Like I said, it was kind of weird with the UFC, but like again, it's just fighting. You don't really need a crowd for that, because obviously a lot of those undercard fights, whether it's like I said, boxing, UFC, there are no fans, so that happens. But it's like the big fights, it's kind of weird. And obviously once team sports pick back up, it'll be weird with no fans. But we will see how that continues to go. So after this next break, we're going to come back here and we're going to discuss a prominent player now in the NBA that was in the NCAA last year has some allegations waged against him recently. And I guess, well, he's not the only one. I know a university was also involved in some allegations. But it just brings back the topic of the fact that players, well, student athletes in the NCAA should already be getting paid and should not be penalized for getting benefits, in my opinion, or even schools for that matter. I'll discuss what I mean by that or why I think that right after this break. So stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Presented by GSMC Podcast. Now, this news broke like sometime in the afternoon on Sunday. No, I don't want to call it a bombshell, because it's not like it's all that surprising, but it just kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, so the attorneys representing Zion Williamson's former marketing representative and her company have asked the New Orleans Pelicans star to admit that his mother and stepfather demanded and received gifts, money, and other benefits from persons acting on behalf of Adidas and Nike, and also from people associated with Duke, to influence him to sign with the Blue Devils and to wear Nike or Adidas products. Williamson, who obviously only played one season at Duke before becoming the #1 pick in the 2019 NBA draft, sued Gina Ford and Prime Sports in June in an attempt to terminate his marketing agreement with her company. Williamson's attorney claimed the contract was in violation of North Carolina's Uniform Athlete Agents Act, because Prime Sports is not certified by the NBA Players Association, nor a registered athlete agent in North Carolina or Florida. Ford and Prime Sports Marketing and Williamson's Creative Artist Agency, CAA, and two of its employees in a Florida court the same month. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me rewind that. I think I said it wrong. Ford and Prime Sports Marketing sued Williamson, CAA, and two of its employees in a Florida court the same month, alleging CAA interfered with Prime Sports' deal with Zion Williamson, that he breached was on, and that he breached, so these two separate things, and that he breached their 5-year contract The lawsuit seeks $100 million in punitive damages. In a filing with Miami-Dade court last week, Ford's attorneys asked Williamson to admit that several statements were true, including his mother and his stepfather demanded and received gifts and economic benefits from persons acting on behalf of Duke University, directly or indirectly, to influence Zion to come to Duke. Like I said, his mother and his stepfather demanded and received gifts and money and other benefits from persons on behalf of Nike to influence him to attend Duke, and the same thing with Adidas to influence him to attend Duke. And before becoming a student at Duke, Williamson or persons acting on his behalf, including but not limited to, like his mother and his stepfather, accepted benefits from a NCAA certified agent that was not expressly permitted by the NCAA legislation, I should say, between January 1st, 2014 and April 14th, 2019. That was a big gap. Try to catch him on. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other details and about the what may or may not have allegedly happened. Obviously, there was a report that recently came out about Kansas and Adidas associated people doing improper things in order to get people to sign with Kansas. Obviously, there's other schools that have had this kind of come down on them. So none of this is all that surprising to me. And all it comes down to is the fact that everybody's doing this. This should no longer be news, in my opinion. If you are a big-time college program, you are doing whatever it takes to get those students into your school and obviously onto your team. Because especially since generally most of these people don't get caught until after the fact. So it's like, by the time they're caught, or like even if Zion admits this, alright, like who cares? Honestly. Just like you're going to be like mad at Zion for taking things that people are going to give him regardless of where he went? That seems dumb. Are you mad at Duke or are you mad at Nike or Adidas for doing this? No, because that's dumb. If I was Duke, I would do whatever it took to get Zion in my school. If I'm Nike or Adidas, I'm trying to get his services because he could be the next big thing. I want him as a part of my team. It seems reasonable. So I'm just saying, it's like, I don't know why anyone's ever shocked when this stuff happens. Or maybe it's just some of the stuff I saw on Twitter, but maybe people aren't shocked anymore. Maybe that's a good thing. Just because every big-time program is doing this to some capacity. Now, have they got caught? Maybe not. But everybody's doing this. Because at the end of the day, college athletics is a business. As much as we try to call it amateur, as much as we try to call it, oh, these guys are paid in their scholarships or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Especially for basketball, most of these top guys are there for a year max, and most of them don't. And now, so like I know the UNC had the scandal a couple years back. They were taking like BS courses in order to just to make them eligible to play. Not everybody does that, but some of these guys were. And I think it was like Sean Blair at Arizona. I think he got in trouble for paying like DeAndre Ayton or whoever. Like there was like some calls that different coaches and people were making to try to get different people to go to different schools. I know Kansas has been involved with some stuff. And like I said, at the end of the day, college athletics is a business. If you are in business, you will do whatever it takes. Like imagine you're seeking a job. Like if you're out in the real world, you're and you have companies vying for your services. Most companies will do whatever they think is necessary in order to get that person, whether it's like increasing their salary, whether it's like giving them a company card or giving them more time off or doing whatever. They're doing that in order to get the person to come and join that company and be a part of the company. Now, because that is not deemed illegal, people do it all the time because whoever was like, oh, these kids aren't professionals, like now, like they deemed all this stuff illegal years ago, just because they didn't want people making money. They didn't want the athletes profiting at all from this. And now I get, like, technically is it illegal? Yes. Should you be doing it? No. But, like I'm saying, these athletes make billions and millions and even sometimes billions of dollars for the NCAA. and millions of dollars like for their school, and they get zero cut of it. And now not all these guys come from well-off situations. So they could use the extra money. You could use, like I said, maybe their parents need a new car or something. It's like, hey, look, if you're going to offer it, I'm going to take it. It's not like, again, they're not doing anything extra. It's not like they're forcing these people to do things. Most of these people are just willingly offering these things up because that's what everybody does. If you want somebody to be a part of your school or represent your brand, you're going to give them what you think is necessary. That's what I'm saying. Just like whenever these NCAA rules are decided, they were just like, "Oh, we just don't want the players to be paid." Because if that wasn't illegal, it wouldn't be a big deal. Well, obviously, it wouldn't be a big deal if it was illegal, but like, it shouldn't be a big deal in general. Because like, it happens all the time. If your school isn't doing it, then I would argue your school is not serious about winning anything. Because I know, obviously, like Duke is supposed to be like some sort of like straight-laced, clean university, but like, no. They're no different than everybody else. Like, why do you think all of a sudden they've had all these top recruiting classes, like, recently? I'm not gonna say they've been paying everybody, but, like, I would pay Zion, too. Like, what? Like, anybody who's anybody would have done what Duke may or may not have done, because obviously it's not confirmed yet, but whatever is alleged, if they did do that, I completely understand. Zion is, or was the biggest thing in college basketball last year, and was still one of the biggest stories in the NBA, even though he didn't play half the season. I want that to be a part of my university as well. And if I have to give like the mother a house, or buy somebody a car, or like give them some money or whatever, okay, Duke can afford it. Like it's not like they're going to run out of money at the school. So it's just like I hate when these stories come out. We always kind of like berate the kid, or like talk down on the kid for being like, oh, like how could you do something so bad? I'm like, look, or even like berate the university to agree. And I'm just like, look, everybody's doing this. If you haven't been caught, it just means it's not your turn yet, because you're going to get caught. Because like I said, every top program is doing this, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't have the facts necessarily back that up, but there's been enough stories about different people getting different benefits. What they may be, I don't know. But like, I mean, this isn't like a new thing. Like I talked about Reggie Bush having to give his Heisman back. Like he had to do that because he took money from an agent. Like this has been happening for years now. This is nothing new. So to be like shocked every time it happens is like all right, come on, guys. No one is this naive. Most of us are adults here. We're adults. We understand how businesses work. Businesses want to do whatever they can to position themselves to be as successful as possible. And if they have to do something legal or illegal to do that, that's a risk they're willing to take. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's not like there's anything really bad happens. Like, alright, like, oh, like the wins are vacated. Or like, oh, maybe your title's vacated. Or like, oh... like maybe you get like a suspension from postseason play, like whatever. The money's already been made and spent. You can't take back the money. Like I know, like like the Fat Five. I know, like Chris Webber's hasn't been back on Michigan campus. He hasn't talked to a lot of those guys. So like he got some sort of benefits, and like obviously that undid everything the Fat Five did on paper. Everyone knows what the Fat Five did. Like, you could, whether or not it's legitimate in the record books or not, completely separate story. It all happened. Everybody knows that. No matter what you try to do to erase it, it happened. It happened. It's like I'm saying, that's why schools or players or agents and stuff do this, because, like I said, by the time it already catches up to them, like, very rarely does it happen where it's like a James Wiseman's case, where, like, the player gets suspended that year. Normally it's after the fact, and it's like, at that point, it's like, who cares? Just like, alright, okay, we got caught, whatever. And then, like, you just do it again later on. Everybody's doing this. I don't understand why this is a big thing. And like I'm saying, if you are a believer in the amateur nature of college athletics, and you believe that your school is not doing this, that just means they haven't been caught yet. That's all it relatively means. Now, football is a little bit different because it's, like, harder to do that, but again, it's still happening. It's like basketball's easy because you can just, like, get these guys for a year. Like I said, if you have these guys for 2-3 years, chances are someone's gonna be sloppy and like details may come out. But in basketball, all you gotta do is keep it clean for like half a year. The season's done, and then like if something comes out, it comes out. If it doesn't, oh look, we're clean. And and again, maybe this person is just mad. Maybe these allegations are nowhere near true. And at the same time, none of this will shock me at all. Because again, NCAA is a business, and these players aren't amateurs. They're like professionals that just like aren't getting paid. So if someone's going to pay them, give them a little bit of an incentive or a push towards one direction or the other. I mean, hey, look, if I'm Zion, I'm going to the highest bidder as well. Whatever you want to give me, I'm willing to listen. Same with his parents. I'm gonna offer like, hey, look, what are you gonna offer? They don't have to give you anything, but they're going to because that's just they're gonna want you to come to your school. So like, who would I'd be remiss to not take advantage of that. If you're gonna offer me stuff, why would I not? Sport's not the right word, but why would I not utilize that to my advantage? If you're gonna give me money or you're gonna give me a car, or give me like free stuff, who would I be to turn that down? They're going to do it. If they don't do it, someone else will. So it's like, it doesn't make any sense. I know the same thing happened with Tua. People were talking about they moved his family down to Alabama. They bought all the Alabama players trucks or whatever. It's like there's always jokes about like how some Alabama players leave and like are making less money now, or just like big time like Clemson players or wherever, just like big time college football players leave and make less money than they were making at their schools. Obviously, I don't think that's true. They're not paying everybody, but Tua. How do you get from Hawaii to Alabama? It's a fair question. And they brought his brother there too? I mean, granted, the brother's transferring now. But, hey, I mean, like I said, I don't cast allegations on people that just like out the blue. So I'm not going to say Alabama's doing those things. But if it came out that Tua got some sort of benefits, would I be surprised? No. Because at the end of the day, you need to be competitive on the field because you need to, in order to keep your business and make as much money as you can, you need the best people possible. And if you got to give somebody a car or help somebody buy a house or pay for a house, that's the cost of doing business. And like I said, it wouldn't be, and maybe this will go away once like players can profit off their likenesses and stuff, so they won't have to worry about going through these back alleys to get this money, and even like I said, even with the G League thing, maybe more players won't even be going to the NCAA anyway. But like I'm saying, as long as people aren't getting paid, this kind of stuff's going to happen. No need to be surprised when it does. It's like I said, if it hasn't happened to your school yet, that just means either A, your school's not that good, or B, you just haven't got caught yet. Because I mean, all the big time programs, all the big time coaches have had some sort of scandal affiliated with them. It's just like I said, it's the nature of the business. At the end of the day, the NCAA is a business. Whether they want to confirm it or not, it is a business. There's no reason to like act like it's not. So there's no reason to be surprised with this stuff. And just like, hey, in my opinion, who really cares? They're not like, again, it's like illegal by NCAA rule just because the NCAA decided that they didn't want players getting money. But like, they're not like committing crimes. Like, it's not like they're like selling drugs or like committing felonies or whatever. I don't know, maybe, like I said, I know it's against NCAA rules, but it's not like they're doing anything like outrageously outside the law in order to get. So they're just giving kids money and incentives, like you do when you get a job. Like it's just the same thing. You're seeking a job, people are going to give you. So one company might give you a little bit more than another company. Might give you more benefits. Might give you more incentives to different things, and you get to decide. It's the same thing. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. So I thought I'd just point that out because, again, I don't really care about whether Zion did or didn't do this. If he did, all right. If he didn't, all right. It doesn't matter to me either way because I'm not naive. I understand that this is happening everywhere, and you should too. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. But lastly, after this last break, I wanted to talk about, obviously, as I discussed earlier, the Last Dance documentary is wrapping up next week, and people are discussing, or already have been discussing, is this the best sports documentary of all time? So we'll talk a little bit about that, talk about some of the recent docs that I've seen, and just give my overall opinions on if it is on that trajectory right after this break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. GSMC Podcast Network. So, The Last Dance, as I mentioned, is coming up on its last episodes, and I mean, well, I think I'm gonna do a deeper dive into like the best 30 for 30s after this is done. Just like give my, I don't, top 10's probably gonna be a little too long, but like my top 5 favorite, not to say best, but like my top 5 favorite. Because obviously best is always subjective. There's no like real, I mean, I guess if you want to go by like Rotten Tomatoes or some sort of scoring system, but again, even those, like there's a lot of movies that I like that Rotten Tomatoes doesn't, and same vice versa. There's a lot of movies on Tomatoes likes, and I'm just like, yeah, this movie's alright. So, like I said, I don't base everything on ratings. You kind of just, everybody's opinion's a little different. So you just base it on what you like and what you don't. Same thing with like TV shows, whatever. Music. But yeah, so, obviously, with as good as the documentary has been, people are discussing like, oh, is this the best, not only is this the best 30 for 30s, it's one of the best sports documentaries ever. And I would caution everybody to pump the brakes a little bit on that. Because, first off, we have to see how it ends. That's very important. Now, again, the first 8 episodes have been great, so I would be shocked if it's like automatically just bad. But, just across many different platforms, whether it's like 30 for 30, whether it's Netflix, Showtime, Hulu, I don't know if there's any ones on Amazon, like, there are so many platforms, or just like NFL Network, NBA TV, like, there are so many platforms for sports documentaries now. And again, and I think the thing that people, and as we saw on the last episode, was it the last one? Nah, it wasn't the last one, but it was like one of the ones last week. The last episodes last week, we talked about like different stories that may be worth a 10-part documentary kind of thing. And I think a lot of people just like will say like, oh, because this was so long. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons it's longer because there's a lot of stuff involved into it. But it's like, oh, that automatically makes it better. And I'm just like, that's not necessarily the case. I know there's the documentary they're showing on like Roy Halladay, and the trailer for that looked fantastic. And again, I like baseball. I play baseball. But I'm like an avid baseball fan. And I'm watching all 162 games plus the playoffs. I like tune in here and there, maybe watch some games if my dad's watching it on TV, and then I'll see the playoffs. I'll watch any sport in the playoffs because it's the playoffs. Why wouldn't you? Be like, that looked phenomenal. And again, I'm not a Phillies fan. I'm just a sports fan. But like that, the way they were talking about it, like the way they're kind of setting it up, the whole perfect game, and it's like how he was kind of perceived as like this perfect pitcher, like the perfect prospect, like about great motion, all that stuff. And obviously, he had a lot of things that he was dealing with off the diamond that kind of led him to live an imperfect life, and obviously, it was tragically cut short. And so the duality of that and the way it was like the score and like the shots and like the cinematography, all that stuff, made a documentary about baseball look like the most interesting thing ever. I think that was like an E60 one, so I don't even know if it's 30 for 30. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of, just because the documentary is longer, it does not make it better. Obviously, with more, and if you make any documentary, I mean, not every story is worth, like I said, not every story is worth 10 parts.
But like longer documentaries, there's obviously more stuff you can put into it. And I guess obviously when you have more stuff to put in, you can make it long. I know the Lance Armstrong documentary, I think that's getting like 2 separate nights on it. Like I talked about the Michael Vick one, they got 2 separate nights. So there's like stories that are worth more than just like the hour and a half, 2 hours that most of these 30 for 30s are. But like I'm saying, just because it's about the best player ever, in my opinion, in the NBA, does not make it the best documentary ever, in my opinion. Like I said, I still think that goes to the O.J. Simpson doc, because that 30 for 30 was phenomenal. And just like all the different ways it covered it, the different scopes, the way it was looking. I mean, not that this documentary doesn't have isn't talking about the world, but it's just like mainly it's just like about Michael Jordan. It's just like 10 hours more or less on Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and like other characters are mixed in. Like you got a little Scotty here and there, even though, like I said, we talked about it's mainly only showing him screwing things up. You got a little Phil here and there, but even his parts are like kind of hit or miss. Got a little bit more detail on Rodman, but generally speaking, it's about Michael Jordan. Every story, everything most of the people talk about is, even if it's not about Mike, it's somehow connected to Michael. Which, I mean, is no problem, because the documentary is interesting, so I don't really care. And obviously, I didn't live through most of this stuff, so a lot of this information is new to me. Obviously, a lot of the footage is new to everyone, but like a lot of this information, the things that I'm seeing and learning are new to me because obviously I didn't live through this. I could have looked it up, but this is like the way it's being portrayed makes it more interesting. Like I said, this O.J. Simpson thing, I knew about that. I had heard about it, had read things about it, watched videos about it, and for them still to take something that everybody knew about. Because obviously with this doc, they have all this footage that people didn't know existed. Oh, and I guess people knew that they shot it. They followed his last season, but just like all the stuff that we're seeing, it's a lot of like highlights and clips. Like I don't know if you didn't live this, or maybe if you weren't from Chicago, how much you didn't already know about the story. Obviously, you're hearing different. There's documentaries. The purpose is for you to learn things that you didn't already know. I want to go back and look at stuff you didn't already know. But I'm just saying, like, it was hard for something like OJ where everybody knew about it. You didn't have to be a sports fan, you knew about the OJ Simpson trial. And, like, what he may or may not have done. And so take that and to, like, talk about it from, a wider scope about, like, the world and, like, society as in general, and, like, the way that the trial was portrayed and how they screwed things up and all that stuff. And just, like I said, take something that everybody knows about and still shock people and surprise people with the details that you have in it is impressive. Like I said, not to say that isn't happening with the Jordan doc, but like I said, at the end of the day, it's a Jordan doc. And that's been some people's complaints about, is that they haven't talked to, not that I want to hear a lot more from like Jed Bushler or Luke Longley or Bill Wennington or Bill Cartwright. Like, that's not really why I watched the doc. I wanted to watch it because I wanted to know about Jordan and the team. But I can see why that's some people's gripe, is that, like, even though I know, beginning was like, it was all like, oh, everything's positive about Jordan. I was like, that's not possible. They hadn't gotten to that yet. Now, obviously, as we've seen, not everything's been positive around Jordan. But at the end of the day, everything connects back to Jordan in some way. And obviously, he's the focus of the piece. But it's just like, I could see why people, if you thought it was going to be about the Chicago Bulls more so than just Jordan, you would want their perspective and their opinion on different things that happen, not in a way that it's solely, just like I said, tied back to Jordan. So, people's gripe on that, I get. Like I said, that's not my gripe because I didn't really care about that kind of stuff, but people's issue. But even just like recent documentaries I saw, that Aaron Hernandez doc on Netflix, excellent, recommend to anyone. Just because, like I said, it's like all the different, I mean, some of the stuff was a little bit unnecessary, like his sexuality playing into like him going crazy and murdering people. Probably a bit of a stretch. I don't, like, obviously not to say that he didn't have some deep-seated issues he needed to work out with that, but I think a lot of it has to probably do with some of the CTE. That's just me. I mean, I said he had like one of, if not the most advanced case of CTE as someone that had died that young. I feel like they could have talked about that more in the doc. But still, that was excellent. I think that was ESPN too. So it kind of ties in. Even the recent like Michael Vick doc that they talked about, just like the way even that's something, again, I knew about. I lived through that. I didn't know all the details of it, but I lived through it. I was a kid when it happened, but I understood like what had happened, and obviously kind of the redemption story because he played for the Eagles, and I'm an Eagles fan, so I understood that aspect of it. It was like even still finding out things here or there. It was so interesting, and like I said, that was a longer doc. Even some of the other 30 for 30s they've done, like or not even 30 for 30s, but like some of those like a Football Life that NFL Network does, or like I know there was a really good Showtime documentary. I think it was on like Lawrence Taylor, or just like like I said, just like different 30 for 30s that they done, where it's like what was the Bo Jackson one? Like the Bo Knows, there's the ones about there's the one about the U, even the one about the Buffalo Bills was really interesting. Like there's a lot of recency bias in this, and obviously Jordan's a lot of people's favorite, not just favorite basketball player, favorite athlete ever. So it's hard to tell you, like, if you have a story about your favorite person, it's not going to be interesting. But, like, I'm watching this, and I'm very intrigued, but I'm not, like, blown away, necessarily. But that's just me. When I was watching the O.J. Simpson doc, I was legitimately blown away. I mean, it's just because I'm not, like, I'm not a stand for anyone. Like, I'm not, like, a Jordan guy or, like, a LeBron guy or whatever. I'm just, like, I think Jordan's probably the best overall, like, basketball player ever, but that I'm not like a oh, I'm going to debate you on it forever, like I'll never change my opinion. I'm just like, yeah, look, that's just how I feel. Doesn't mean it's not subject to change. A lot of people that are watching this, or like, obviously, especially the older generation, are like Jordan, quote-unquote, stans. Shout out to Eminem for giving us that word. And they're just like, they just think everything that he's done, everything that they ever discussed about him is the greatest thing in the world, and that's why you obviously have some of the LeBron guys kind of going back at them and stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's not me. I just watch. I have my favorite players, like Michael Vick and Allen Iverson were my favorite players going. I'm not to say that they're the best players that their sport ever, because they're not. Those are like my favorite players growing up. Like, I wasn't tied to like a LeBron or an MJ or whoever. And since I don't have that connection, maybe that's why I don't feel that way about this documentary. The same way, like, the guys, people from Chicago, people that grew up watching the Bulls, or big fans of the Bulls, have that tie to, like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever, just because it's about my favorite player ever. And I said, I really enjoyed the Michael Vick doc. Am I going to call it the best documentary ever? No. But, like, that's one I really enjoyed. You know, there's been some stuff about Allen Iverson. Those ones I've really enjoyed. That isn't, like I said, it's just, it's all subjective, and like I said, I'll go deeper into the 30 for 30 specifically after this one concludes. But just like I said, I don't think it's the best sports documentary. So then that goes. I'm pretty sure the people I think it's still The People versus O.J. Simpson. I think is the official name of the doc. Let me just double check that to look it up for you guys. But that's still the best sports documentary that I can remember seeing. O.J. Simpson, 30 for 30. O.J. Made in America. The People versus O.J. Simpson was a TV series on FX about it. So O.J. Simpson Made in America. That's what it was. That, like, again, it was a 5-part, kind of like this, where like it's broken down. Like I said, it's on 5 different nights, but I don't know if they're all of them. I think all of them are 2 hours too. But they were just like this one's like technically 10 parts, but each part's an hour. So, and you could argue maybe it's similar in concept, but like I said, that still probably the best sports documentary I've ever seen. And like I said, I don't have any bias, so I have no dog in the fight, so that's probably why my opinion's like the way it is. And like I said, maybe if I were a bigger Jordan guy, I'd feel differently. But like I said, I still think a lot of it's recency bias, and I get that. Newer things are deemed better. Same way people on Twitter were telling me that Ozark is better than Breaking Bad. And having watched both shows for the first time recently, that's not true. But Ozark's a newer show, so everyone's like, oh yeah, the new things are always better. And like I said, if I think people, just because the O.J. Simpson doc was a couple years ago, people kind of forget, and like, oh my god, this Jordan doc is so good, like it has to be the best thing ever. And I'm like, let's hold on there, big fella. Let's hold on there, big fella. Let's first wait till it ends, and second, let's just like, all right, instead of just like, and again, maybe a lot of these Chicago people, a lot of these Jordan fans, are never going to change their opinion on this, but like I said, let's at least go back and examine Let's really go back and look at that O.J. Simpson doc. That thing was spectacular, start to finish. There's almost no flaws in it. Like, I could find flaws in this Jordan documentary if I wanted to. I'm just not, I'm not that nitpicky of a person, but there are flaws to be had if you are a person that is selective with the type of stuff that they like, or the way the documentary is done. And also, like, the timeline, a little bit confusing. Like, I get, like, you're tying everything back to the 98 season, but just, like, and it's not hard to follow for me, but just, like, I like more conciseness. Like, if you're going to be, like, I understand you want to get us to how we got to here, but they're showing us how we got there, while also showing us there, if that makes sense. Like, they're showing us the 97-98 season, also trying to tell us why the season matters. And then it's like, it can get a little convoluted at times. And again, I follow it, it's not that hard, but again, it's another gripe that I had. The O.J. Simpson thing made sense start to finish. Like, you understood each part, and like I said, just an overall, this is just about Michael Jordan as a whole, and it's like about how big he was. That documentary was bigger than sports as a whole. Not to say that Jordan wasn't bigger than sports, but that documentary talked on more than just the trial or just OJ, the person, or OJ, the athlete. It talked about, like, again, society as a whole and how it, like, affected that. Jordan, again, while he was arguably the biggest, not arguably, he was the biggest star in the world at the time of his peak. But it's like, it's still just about Michael Jordan. It's not about society as a whole. So, or even, like, you could talk about how trash the media can be towards athletes. They don't even delve into that. They talk about it just from the perspective of MJ. So I'm saying, if you're going to have some gripes, there are some gripes to be had. I'm not a gripey kind of person. That's just me. So yeah, let's just, like, hold on. Let's at least let it finish first before we call it the best sports documentary of all time. And like I said, eventually when this is done, I'll go through and give my top 5 30 for 30s. I'll do that, like, on an episode next week. So we can talk about that. But if you wanted to give me your top 5 list now, we can discuss that on social media. You can find us Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can go there. You can tell me why maybe MJ is the greatest documentary to you. You can tell me what your top 5 sports documentaries are, top 10s, top 30 for 30s. You can tell me why it's a shame Zion got paid and none of these athletes should be getting anything, and it's disgusting, and why you hate it. You can tell me what you liked from episode 7 and 8 of The Last Dance documentary tonight. You can tell me about the UFC and how you like the event when those fans, or even if you think that maybe Adam Silver's in over his head and this whole NBA thing should just get called off as a whole. All those things are more than welcome to discuss with you guys. So I want to thank you guys for listening again to me, talk about sports. I want to appreciate all you guys taking the time out of your day. Before I get out of here, I want to, again, give a shout out to all the essential workers out there. You guys, again, are keeping everything going. Without you guys, this country would be worse off, and I guess we're finding out a lot what essential really means. Because people that are workers that people take for granted, that they berate, say they shouldn't be making this, they shouldn't be making that, are keeping you fed or risking their lives and dealing with customers that do not respect them or treat them the way that they should. And like I said, they're doing this for the little pay compared to the stuff that they have to deal with on a daily basis. So shout out to them. So like I said, this grocery store workers, dollar store, wherever, all those stores that are open, nurses, doctors, everyone that's been out working through this pandemic, hasn't had a chance to work from home, has to work long hours away from their families, has to risk their lives potentially, because not everybody's taking the virus as seriously as others. Have risked their life potentially, and the lives of their family members and friends, to go out there and keep this country functioning to a degree. Shout out to all you guys. But yeah, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. And also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating. Write us a review if you like what you've heard today. Like what you've heard on other episodes. Be very appreciated. Very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. I've been Chris Blades. This has been my time. Like I said, again, I want to thank you for listening. And until next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.